and we are live and rolling after a few technical difficulties. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the H2O
We didn't
podcast.
plan this, by the way. If you're watching on this stream, like we're wearing the same shirt, same hat. We've got the same beard. The only difference is Joel has glasses and I don't.
Brand new ones, by the way. It's amazing what you can see. So, but we're pretty excited today. Someone that we met at Western Hunt Fest, Joe Giglia, who is founder, owner of Elk Bros, and some really cool stuff that you guys do. I know that your bros is plural, so you're the Elk Bro today. But Joe, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Yeah, so I'm trying to decide who's who here, man. The twin look. Yeah, I got you. All right.
Yeah. So.
It's more like the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito twins, where I would be Arnold and Joel would be DeVito in terms of height.
Yeah.
You know,
when you sit
ratio
down
there.
and the mic, it's all level playing field. So
actually, my chair is all the way at the bottom and Joel's is all the way at the top, so that we can be even here.
That's I love it, man.
Studio quality here.
That's it. It's movie magic.
Well, let me tell you what, you guys have got the best top-notch set I have seen yet, man.
Well, thank you. It was kind of a little bit of a vision of mine. We all kind of chipped in, but wanted to make this room, a place that, wasn't just sitting in a corner or at a desk, and dedicated a little bit. We've got soundproofing and all that good stuff. So, yeah, but it works. It works pretty well.
Are you sitting in the attic or?
Oh, dude, yeah. This is my space. This is the upstairs, man. This is, I couldn't even. Got to have the elk up here. Everything, you know how that is when you get the mounts and you're like, oh yeah, right here's a perfect spot, and they're like, nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. I used to have one too. Instead of a man cave, I called it the man atrium.
Yeah.
Because it was up high. So
yeah,
I feel your pain.
Yeah. Well, actually, hey, it's warmer up here.
Right.
We can make it happen.
So,
go ahead.
So you're in New Mexico, correct?
Yes, I am, man. Cimarron, New Mexico. Population approximately 900. There's no stoplight. You stick your head out your back window, you're out of town. We're about a half mile long, and we're actually about 45 minutes from the Colorado border, and Trinidad, New Mexico on the other side. Trinidad, Colorado on the other side.
Yeah, so that sounds like a place I'd like to be. I grew up in a place similar to that, so with less mountains, but still the
more corn.
Yeah, way more corn for sure.
Sound like a Nebraska boy or something.
That's exactly right. You hit it dead on the head there. So not too far from Colorado. Again, kind of bordering. Spent a lot of time out here, but let's talk a little bit about some of what you guys do. I know you have a long history of success, especially in elk hunting, and I think maybe I know that you have guided for a long time. Do you still guide?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm heading out in the morning. Everything's getting packed up. I get out of here, go get some tires changed, get ready for the mountains because we have snow coming in, and so I'll be heading up and then getting after it, man. Excited about that. So that's the cool thing is, I am a bow hunter. I've always been a bow hunter. I don't even own a rifle. Whenever I'm guiding rifle hunters, which I do quite a bit, I'm a good shot. I just bow is my weapon of choice, always has been since I was a kid. I grew up in the Carolinas where we did hunt squirrels with 22s. So you learn to be, really pick your shots with that. But yeah, I don't even own a rifle. But the cool thing is because bow hunting is my thing, archery, elk is my thing. But since I get to guide all the way through most of the time until January, heading from the bull hunts into the cow hunts and stuff like that, I really get to see elk full circle, how they move from place to place, their habits, how that changed, how they split off, how they rejoin. And you really get a good education just being around those animals pretty much throughout the year.
Yeah. And I think that's That's a big thing. I mean, I started out rifle hunting a little bit. I'm not a good shot, like unlike yourself. And I just growing up, I did a lot of bird hunting, upland bird hunting, and things like that, and waterfowling and stuff. And my dad never like really got us into like big game hunting, and a lot of that came from a friend of mine, and then I started dragging him into it. And much like a lot of people, as soon as I got a bow in my hand, I'm like, yeah, I think this is my jam. You know, I just enjoy it so much more. You know, the closeness, the proximity, the time of year, you know, all those things that kind of play into it. And at the same time, it was also, you know, just not having a level of comfort or even necessarily preference to shooting a rifle. And much like you, like I do own a rifle, but I don't know if
you loosely own a rifle.
It hasn't seen air or daylight in years, but I do own one. It's older than me, I think. So, but you know, so talk a little bit about, you know, your kind of progression. You said, you know, you grew up out east. How did you become an elk hunter then?
Yeah, man. So poor boy from, you know, North Carolina. Did a lot of squirrel hunting, bullfrogs, ducks, geese. Really not a whole lot of big game, because back in the South where we lived, and I ended up moving to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, actually living in areas around Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And my dad had become part of a hunting club, and in the South, the way that worked was guys all pitched in to, you know, kind of lease and be part of this hunting club. And you deer hunted by putting people on stand and running dogs through an area, and you pretty much shot the deer like you would rabbits going through. It was about as much fun for me as watching paint dry. I just, it just wasn't my thing, man. In fact, you know, one of probably the most efficient ways to kill an elk is probably, you know, in a blind or in a stand, or, you know, waiting for an animal in certain areas. But my doggone ADD and my love for talking to these critters just doesn't allow me to do that. I have to be on the move, and I just like being part of the woods, part of the flow, part of what the critters are doing, figuring them out, and trying to be part of their environment, get into their environment, and then do things that are going to beat them at their own game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what thrills me. That's what gets me going and what I live for. You know, so I did all of that back home. No big game. Like I said, my family, you know, my family wasn't a family of people that went to college. I think I'm the first one in my family to graduate from high school, actually. And I had my real father was a Marine veteran, and he passed away. And so I had veterans benefits, and through a story, everything that happened, I ended up taking advantage of that. I got an offer out of the blue from a college called the University of Albuquerque in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I looked at it on a map, and I saw, wow, man, this is perfect. It's got like Texas on one side, Arizona, Colorado. And I was like, wow, man, that's a perfect place to go and just see something other than the South, you know? So $1,500 in each shoe. I was about a half-inch taller because I wasn't going to let any city boys steal my money. And I got a one-way ticket out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, landed there, and the rest is pretty much history, because with me also came my bow, came with me. Old Smoky, my shotgun, came with me. I told you I'm a backwoods redneck, man. So I came out here, and I fell in love out here, dated my wife for a year, was engaged for a year, and then we transferred from Albuquerque to northern New Mexico, which was Las Vegas Highlands University up there. And when I came up to Highlands, I got involved with a group of guys that were shooting bows, the Las Vegas Bow Hunters Club. And guys there because of my shooting ability. And, I was hunting deer, I was hunting other small game, but had never hunted elk. And I'm hunting deer one day here in northern New Mexico, and I'm stalking through the woods, and I hear something off, and I kind of just back myself against a tree. And I have a cow elk walk by me so close I could have smacked her on the rear. And it was, first of all, man, seeing this animal, the size of that animal as it went by me, I was like, oh, dude, I am home, man.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. I hadn't seen a bull elk at the time, just the cow elk, man. And that in itself it was so sleek. It was so huge. It amazingly quiet for the size of it, right? And I ended up having one of the guys in my club invited me on my first elk hunt. And it was one of those romantic type things on horseback. You go back in, for miles up into the wilderness, pitch a tent, and now hunt a critter I have never hunted in my life. But, I just used my skill set. I just used my hunting skill set. I understand animals. I understand feed. I understand water. I understand movement. And I just used that. And I also found something later on that really helped me. You see the size of this nose, right? My first technique before I actually learned to call them was I would cut crosswind till I smelled these critters, and then I would hunt into the wind. And that was my first technique for ever hunting elk. But on my very first elk hunt, I think I'm 19 or 20, I end up killing my first elk, a cow elk. The first time I did that at 40 yards, my arrow rest had, I guess on horseback, had ripped off of my bow. And, I'm actually going to draw back and there's no rest on my bow. Well, dude, a country boy can survive, man. So, put the finger up there, drew back on the finger, and it was a done deal. And then came the work, and then trying to figure that part out. I learned some lessons immediately on that have stuck with me for life. But that was my first elk hunt at the time, and I was hooked. And that's in early 80s. Gosh, man, that's like 82, 83, and calling elk really hadn't come out that much, right? It was just starting to happen there in the 80s. And I was turkey calling, and when I first started hearing people using diaphragm calls to call elk, I just started, getting out in the woods with that and started mimicking them, trying to do the same sounds they were doing. So my education, like most of the guys back there in the early 80s, our education didn't come from, of course we read magazines, and man, when you looked at those magazines when I was in the South, you looked at elk hunting as something that was this far away place that, these great hunters did that I would never be able to afford, never be able to travel to, none of these things. And here I am now in elk country and have them to where now they can be my teachers, and I just start learning from them. And the way I originally learned from them was just mimicking. That was how I originally started calling elk, and that started my journey. And there's so many things, I never thought about it, but my wife and I, we were poor college students, right? So arrows, broadheads, tags, and at that time, here, you won't believe this, I think for $36, right around that, it was something like $30-something, you could get your elk, your deer, your turkey, your bear all together, right?
Jeez.
What a day.
Oh man, hunter heaven. And so I was out all the time, but even though the cost of the tags weren't that much, just the cost of going, the time of being away from family, and all of that, and spending the money on the equipment that I needed and paying for gas and stuff like. But look, that's why we call our podcast Blue Collar Elk Hunting. I've done this on zero budget. I hunted in tennis shoes. I still hunt in tennis shoes. We ate peanut butter and jelly and bologna sandwiches. I mean, there was no mountain house at that time. And so I did everything on a budget, but I was out in the woods every year. And that meat, if I was going to spend that money, my goal was I was going to bring something home. And I was relentless in the woods. I've always been relentless in the woods. And, I hear a lot of people talking about how, their success is just being out in the woods. Their success is just doing this. For me, success meant that I honored the money and time that I was away from my family, and I put meat in the freezer. So I was pretty driven that way. And in order to be more and more successful, I had to get better and better at it. And just by spending time out there, my skill set, I've always been a good shot. I shoot, I've always shot until this last year. I've always shot instinctive bare bow, compound, yes, fingers, no sights, but that's how I grew up, and it was just natural for me, and I was a killer that way. I mean, it didn't take me, I didn't have to do a lot of thinking. I shot a ton, and when an animal presented itself there, and I got in a red zone, it wasn't going to take very long to get an arrow off on where I wanted it to be. So, became a very efficient elk hunter. So as that started happening over years of doing that, I'd have guys that would hunt with me, and they're like, Joe, you realize you've killed an elk every year now for like 16 years? And I'm like, okay, so, I
no
thought that's
deal.
what I was
That's what you're supposed to do.
That's
right?
what I was out here to do, right?
Yeah.
So my skill set kept getting better and better, and people started taking notice of that. And especially, we have large, big ranches, and since I specialized in archery hunters, and at that time, archery wasn't as big. Most ranches weren't big on taking archery hunters in for elk hunts because it meant they had to take them longer. They had to worry about animals getting wounded. That's how they felt about it at the time. They would rather take rifle hunters, get their money, put an animal down, and move on to the next person. So as that started to increase, they needed people with that skill set, and I had it. And so some of the local ranches and people there started wanting me to guide elk hunters on that, and that brought a whole another thrill for me because as a profession, I'm a retired teacher coach. I coached sports and kids for 34 years, and so coaching just came natural to me. So when I was out in the woods, it was just natural for me to want to share what was in my head and my passion. I've never been a point and shoot guy, never been that. It's always been sharing the experience, sharing the knowledge, trying to get these people to be as excited about it and get better at it so that, they don't have to use me all the time. You can do this on your own, so that's where the basis of what I do started. And really, a lot of that is the basis
Joe, you there?
What became Elk Bros.
Hello.
Locked him up.
Hello. Joe froze up on us here. We'll see.
You guys froze on me.
Technical difficulties.
You guys look more like twins when you're frozen.
This is what happens when you
I'm going to
dial people in.
Text him real quick and tell him he might need to log back in here. Not sure. We'll splice.
I want to go hunt with Joe now.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
He needs to teach me a thing or two.
I want to do, man. And,
all right.
Yeah. So like I said, you were talking about, the dynamic of, rifle hunting and archery hunting on the ranches and how, ranch owners just wanted to go lay down an animal and move on to the next guy. But the need for your type of a service, bringing in archery hunters was starting to grow.
Yeah. And actually, and as archery hunters started to become, more efficient with their equipment as they were shooting, and I guess a lot of people just didn't think that it's like when I'd go out and I tell people I'm going out elk hunting or deer hunting with a bow, and they're like, really? You know, you can kill an animal with that? And I guess there was that kind of aura out there that people just didn't see bow hunters as being somebody that could efficiently kill an animal like this. And so as that started to change, a lot of these people were now looking for people with that skill set, that thought like a bow hunter, that thought, you know, about those things that you needed to do that were way different than a rifle hunter. It's just two different animals, man. The season's a different animal than, you know, the typical rifle season. So that became a thing. And as I started doing this with clients, it brought a whole new level to me, because I'm actually a retired teacher coach of 34 years. So I worked with kids for 34 years coaching them. So when I was out in the woods with guys, I wanted them to not just, you know, have the point and shoot thing. I wanted them to learn from me. I wanted them to feel my passion. I wanted them to feel like they were gaining knowledge so they could actually do this on their own. You know,
Right.
I wasn't their guide. I was their partner, you know, in a sense.
Well, you were teaching, right, and instructing, and I think that's important for the next generation. That's how I got brought into this, right? We'll call him my hunting mentor, who was on our podcast a couple episodes ago, Chris Watts. When he took me out there, he could have just said, yeah, walk over there, point your rifle and shoot. But he wanted to show me like what tracking is, what to look for, what to listen for. You know, you talked earlier about not being the type of guy to sit in one place and just wait for something to show up, but that you have to move, and it's, you know, you call it your ADD. I'm in the same boat. I hate sitting still. I can't do it. Like, there's so much country out there to explore. There's so much beautiful territory that you'll never see if you just sit under a tree.
Yep.
And for me, I think that's where I really got bought into the idea of archery hunting, and specifically for elk. The first time that Joel invited me up to camp, I bought a bow. I'm going in there. I didn't know what to expect. And then a bull bugles at us from like 40 or 50 yards away, and my chest starts to reverberate. And I'm like, holy cow, like, that sounds like the most terrifying animal on earth, right? And I'm like, that's what we're hunting.
Yeah.
Like, we're actively pursuing that sound.
Yeah.
And, you know, the adrenaline rush and everything that comes with it was the selling point, right? That's like the crown jewel, because you don't necessarily get that as a rifle hunter, because you have the ability to be so far away,
right?
Versus archery, where you've got to be in their neighborhood. You've got to be in their house when you are in an ethical position to make a shot to potentially harvest that creature.
And you have to keep your crap together, man. I mean, you know, you can get in close and you can have an animal come by you at 10, 15 yards and just walk by you. And that's a victory. I mean, that is so exciting. But man, to do the things that you need to do to be able to finish, to be able to close the deal in that kind of close, intimate proximity, man, that's what it's all about. That's what separates the 10% from the 90% right there is, I mean, there are a ton of people out there that are having encounters and having opportunities, but they just haven't been able to put together those final seconds to be able to close, right? You know, that's where the skills.
You talk about like the purity of hunting, right? I've told people that I hunt, and they some of them will scoff at me, and I say I'm an archery hunter, and they go, hey, you know what? I'm okay with archery hunting because there's more purity in that, right? They feel like it's not fair chase to shoot an animal with a rifle from 5, 6, 7, 800 yards away, but knowing that there's a tremendous amount of skill that has to go in order for you to get close enough to execute a shot. And then you're taking into account things like wind and scent, and, you know, then obviously your skills as an archer, like all of that plays into, and they think that is where the true skill lies, in being able to get close enough where you can do that.
Well, that's where, I never want to look down my nose at anybody, because that's what it does it for me, right? I love that intimacy. But at the same time, I guide rifle hunters, and there are people, and a lot of times when you and I talk, we talk about this like those rifle hunters are our age, our ability, and you actually have, yes, we have people our age, our ability to go out there and do this, but you also have people that are now, maybe at that point, or there might be things happening in their life where they are not able to have and get out there in September, get up and down those mountains, or to do those things, but they still love to hunt and they still love the experience, or they're somebody that's never been in that environment or never hunted that animal. And let me tell you what, some of my most rewarding hunts that I've had have been with people on first-time rifle hunts, or people that struggle to be able to get animals that, because of that weapon, along with me being able to work with them, we were able to get them in a position where they could have the thrill of a lifetime. So, for me, that's my weapon of choice. Maybe there might be, I'm getting ready to turn 61, y'all, and I'm going to be doing this as long as I can. But I guarantee you, man, if there's a point where I struggle and I have an opportunity to get out there with everybody else and still experience the outdoors and do this, heck yeah, I'm going to do it with whatever weapon I can out there, and I'm going to be efficient and be good with it. So, I don't ever want it to seem like I'm talking down because that's my weapon of choice, because I think hunting overall, people that work at it, that work with their weapon, that know that weapon, and that work at knowing the animal, work at knowing the area and understanding how to find, how to look for, how to locate. Because let me tell you what, I get to cheat when I'm bow hunting elk in September, because them boogers, I don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry about a chance encounter. I'm not walking in the woods hoping that I come across an elk, right? I bring elk to me, so I have an advantage. Where now, there's a lot of these seasons you get in that rifle hunting where bulls have disappeared from the groups, especially the big bulls. You got smaller bulls there, or if you're cow elk hunting, you have to understand where to find those animals, how to find those animals, and then to get up to be able to put a, like you said, ethical, responsible killing shot on them, right? So each one of these things brings its own nuances that really excite me, and I think that's what keeps me excited as a guide. It's not like I'm going, oh man, this sucks, I got a rifle hunter this week. But it's got its own excitement. It really does, man.
Well, and hunts really aren't cookie cutter either. There's so many variables, right? Whether it's weather or terrain, it's not like they're all sitting in the same area every single time you go out there, right? So that's where, the excitement comes, because it's like, well, they were here last week, but this week they're not. So where are they? Then the cat and mouse game starts.
I had a gentleman a couple of years ago, right at about 80, that we were cow elk hunting, and got this guy to crawl through the snow, 400 and something yards, to be able to get in position. And we're in a prone position with animals all around us. And even though we're there with the rifle, we get up on these animals about 120 yards with the rifle. And we're now having to wait for the animal that we're going to shoot to get clear of other animals and to give us the right shot. We were in the snow freezing our butt off for 45 minutes and ended up with elk all around us before he took that shot. And for him, it was the most exhilarating hunt. And for him to have done what he did with me, crawling through that, it was probably one of my most cherished hunts. And it wasn't an archery hunt, right? So each part of it brings it. And so with Elk Bros, with what I do, with what we do, is we are elk hunting coaches. We've taken this passion, we've taken this knowledge set, and our goal is to not enable, but to empower individuals to be able to have the skill sets and the knowledge to be able to have these incredible life experiences that have, and guys, I mean this when I say this because I work with so many people that I see it, that the hunt has changed their life, literally changed their life in one way, shape, or form. Whether they decided they're going to lose, 60 to 80 pounds to be able to get up and down the hills, or whether they found something about themselves spiritually, a connection that they have out there, whether it's, that it's made them work harder at being better at what they do and having more respect in putting that process, in doing it, that they've now taken that to their family life, their workplace, and other areas in their life. So that's what we do, and that's what excites us. And it's not just me. You guys, have you ever heard our podcast?
Yeah. I've watched a few of them and seen the whole crew, and you guys are going back and forth and talking strategies and calling and all sorts of different things. And so, yeah, I've tuned in and checked a few of them out, and it's fun because I just enjoy seeing how people, are as passionate as we are about it, and get excited when you start kind of talking about different things within hunting, whether, it's situational, scenario, specific trips, hunting in certain ways, or experiences in general. Like, it's always fun for me to see that. And you can always, that to me always comes through when you guys kind of start like bouncing back and forth, and everybody's kind of chipping in and giving their 2 cents. And so,
realistically, the community as a whole is a lot like that, right? Like,
yeah.
not just, obviously we're both just one kind of corner of the community, but everybody in the community, I feel like, has that same passion, right? That, everybody wants to go out there and have success, and everybody's got their different strategies, but everybody's also willing to listen to other people and hear what they have to say about it, because maybe there's something they can glean off of it. Like, Joel and I are both in different industries where that doesn't happen. Our professions there's a lot of mudslinging, and there's a lot of jealousy, and there's a lot of infighting, but I don't feel like we get that in the hunting community nearly as much. Like, there's just a more openness and accepting of different things. And again, I think it's because nobody's ever really, quote unquote, perfected it. Right.
Well,
so things are always dynamic and constantly changing.
And we had better do that. We, as a hunting community, and that goes out in so many different directions, depending on what region, what state, what part of the country you're from. All of us have different things we like to hunt, how we hunt, where we hunt. And if we don't stick together as a hunting community, then we're putting this thing at risk. So it's great to hear people say that, because it is critical for all of us to, like I said, I choose the bow as my weapon of choice. That doesn't mean because, and look, if you've met my crew, you've met Big O, Gilbert Ornelas, right? You've met the Venezuela Mafia, Luis and Manano. You've met RC Knox. You met Chav. And Chav and I we're married to sisters. We've been, this is going to be our 41st season together. This one coming up, believe it or not, man.
Wow.
And he's been my hunting buddy for all those years, my best friend. And, Chav was, him and I, when you look at Elk Bros and you see that symbol, that's me and Chav. I'm the big, ugly one. He's the smaller, guy in that emblem.
That's like him and I.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, man. Yeah, the Sasquatch and the fit guy. So
You can call him a dwarf. It's okay.
Yeah. But all the other guys,
he's the Hobbit, and I'm the Ent.
There you go. Yeah.
I've been called worse.
Yeah, that's all right, bro, man. It all comes back around, right? Huh? So
yeah,
when the other guys in our crew were actually originally clients of mine who became friends, and they were clients that we met through an outfitter who was also a good friend of mine who I coached his kids, named Carl Gamage. And Carl kind of was the guy that brought all of us together. He wanted me in the camp. There was a special thing that's a whole nother story, reason why I was there. But Gilbert Ornelas was one of my first clients there. And he would bring people in. I would guide those people there. And Carl died in 2014. And when he did, it devastated all of us. It was really hard. But to honor Carl, we decided we were going to keep this going. And what would happen is Gilbert would bring some fellas in for me to guide, and we would take them on state land. I would guide Gilbert, guide the other guys. Chad would come into camp, because it was one of the things I told him is, look, I'm hunting with you. That's how I want it to be, right? Me and Chad were going to hunt with you. So in that process, we became close friends. And, you know, at one point, the guys, especially Manano and Luis, came to me and said, you know, Joe, you don't guide, you teach, you coach. That's what you do for us. And you have all this knowledge, and you have to find a way to share this. And, you know, we talked about writing book and magazines, and they just stayed on me. And what I taught in high school was I taught video production, I taught graphic design, I taught web design, I taught broadcasting. So when I came, you know, I was developing as a teacher online coursework for my classes. And when I came across an online elk hunting course that was out there, as soon as I saw that existed, I went, whoa, there it is.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
yeah. My two worlds collided. I mean, I took all of my skill set that I taught in the classroom to all of my coaching that I did out there with athletes to my hunting and so I took all of my passions, and they all just melded together. I called the dudes and I said, hey, we're in. We're creating Elk Bros.
we got something.
And, yeah. And so I'm going to create this course. We're going to do this. But for people to find out about it, you know, we're going to have to do some stuff. We're going to have to, you know, I heard about this thing. I told Gilbert, I heard about this thing called a podcast, Gilbert. Have you ever heard of it? He's like, no, what is it? And I told him, you know, it's where you kind of do a radio show, but it's on the internet. He goes, dude, I'm there. They pay me for talking. So
that's awesome. Well, it's funny because, like, as you're mentioning that, you know, you kind of talk about your background in terms of education and teaching, and I'm like, oh, like, this is what Jason does for us, because, like, his background is in the digital stuff. I anytime I have issues with, like, tech or computers or anything, I'm like, hey, techie. That's what I call him.
Nick Burns, the company computer guy.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, can you fix this? And if you go to our website or anything, like all of our logo stuff, you know, these things or whatever, like, we didn't have to hire anybody for all this stuff.
Yeah, we saved ourselves a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely,
by not paying me.
Yeah, by not paying Jason. We're really good at not paying ourselves for a lot. I'm really
good at giving away my talents for free.
We should have a charitable arm dealer.
Man.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we're now on a whole different wavelength here. I was thinking, I'm like, wait a second, you know, for a self-proclaimed redneck from the South, you're teaching video production and graphic design, like, and you hunting squirrels and deer, and I'm like, these things just don't add up.
Yeah,
like you're an outlier in this world.
You know,
but I guess somebody has to be, right?
You know what? I actually think all of those, but I think all of those related, because if you think all of them's about just learning skill sets as much as possible and problem solving, trying to figure out what it's going to take to get a job done, whether it's you're coaching track and field, basketball, cross country, or football. It's the same thing. You just got to figure out who your opponent is, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and you develop a way to be able to exploit that. You know, when you're talking about technology, man, I mean, as soon as a thing like Google was created, all the answers are out there. You don't have to know everything. You just have to have the desire to learn, man. And, you know, with, you know, it's all of this stuff just came, you know, like the elk hunting. I just applied all of my knowledge set and my problem solving ability, my love for the outdoors, my raising in the woods. And you have that, you got that basic, Neanderthal side, and then you have the technology side that's out there. I think it's a pretty.
You got to have a yin to your yang, right? Like you sit in front of a computer screen and work on coding or graphics work. I'm like, man, I want to just go outside for a little bit, and this just takes it to the extreme.
Absolutely, yeah. And I get to combine the two loves, right? So that's the awesome part. Building this academy. If people don't know about it, we have the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy, and our flagship course right now is our base camp. And our base camp is me giving up 40 years of knowledge. But I do it in a way that's, because I taught school, I don't like how we teach kids. And I tried to change that myself. Like when I taught kids graphic design, for example, they had this incredible computer like what I have in front of me with all this tool sets. But it's just like I could give you the best tool set, the best saws and everything to build a house. I can give you all the lumber. But if you don't know how to use those tools, then you're not going to be able to build a house, dude. And so what I would do is I would give them basic knowledge of the tools, and then I'd give them a difficult problem that they would have to try to apply those tools to accomplish. I would let them fail or progress. And here's the cool thing. We don't let people fail enough. We don't teach our kids and allow them to fail enough. And by allowing my kids to struggle, as soon as I saw that struggle, and then I came and say, you could actually take that tool, and if you hold down shift and you click and drag, it's going to select everything and let you move it all together. And they're like, I have been trying to do that, man. It's like the light bulb comes on and they have it. It's theirs at that point. And it's the same thing with anything. I've got people that have now been out elk hunting that have been struggling in the woods. They struggle in locating elk, trying to figure out, where do I find them? How do I approach them? What strategies do I use? And they've been struggling. So now when you start to give them some skill sets and give them some strategies, it's like, I can do this, right? It's all about confidence, man. It's all, and people we've
done that a lot.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's kind of how we've evolved over the last couple of years, right? Like when I started with these guys at their camp, it was very, I don't want to badmouth anybody here, Joel, but it was very rudimentary and kind of straightforward, based on kind of old school principles, right? And then we started to kind of explore and go, there's got to be a better way to do these things. And so, we start listening, or we start watching some of the YouTube series that are out there. And we start listening to some of the social media guys that are talking out there. And we're like, wow, that really kind of flies in the face of basically everything that we've, up to that point, for Joel wise, everything that he held true. And then we start to apply that in the woods, and we start to have success doing it. And it's like, that's this is how you do things now. It's evolved. And so, but we wouldn't have had that ability to do that type of thing had we not kind of opened our minds to other ways to do it, or seen how other people like yourself and through your academy going, all right, this is a strategy for a bull that, is stubborn, won't come close to you, or you're not finding anything, here's where to look. Those types of things. I think we got really kind of pigeonholed into, this is what we have to do, and they'll eventually show up, or it'll eventually come to me. And it wasn't working. But, adding those strategies into our toolbox gives us options on any given day. We go out into the field and go, all right, nobody's talking today. How do we get them to talk? Where are they today? Right. And now maybe we go out a different day. There's elk bugling all over the place. How do we get one of them to come play with us? Right. you go through your playbook based on the scenario for the day, and you go, all right, this strategy didn't work, next strategy. That strategy didn't work, next strategy, right? And you just kind of go through that. But if you've only got one tool in your toolbox,
Absolutely.
if that tool doesn't work, then you're screwed.
Yep. If you're
right?
a one,
and so you've got to have the ability to kind of fall back in that playbook.
Yep. If you're a one-trick pony, man, you've already handicapped yourself. And, one thing that I learned as a coach is you can have two teams that are of the same physical ability. You have the greatest athletes in the world. Who's going to win? The team that makes the least mistakes is going to be the one that wins.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I try to teach people is how to eliminate failure points so that they don't constantly blow opportunities and encounters and become more efficient out in the woods. And, you talk about yourself out there, and think about this with every hunter and how important that knowledge is of other people that you're talking about. Is that most guys go out and on an elk season, they're going to hunt what? 5, 7, 10 days, right? In an elk season.
Right. Yep.
If they can do that, right? Now, there are some of those that have rare lives and opportunities to get out there for mega long times. But if you come out and hunt, most people are hunting 5 to 7 days. Well, think about this. If you hunted 5 days of elk hunting for 5 years, that means you've gained 1 month of knowledge in 5 years.
Yep.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So it is critical for guys that want to be successful. You can do that, man. You can go out there year after year and, okay, I made this mistake. I'm learning from it. I make this mistake the next year. Blew it. I learned from it. It's like that fish was, this far from shore, this far from shore, this far from shore, right? Every year. Or you can learn from other people's knowledge set. And the things that are out there now are incredible, man. To think that you could go on my course, and for the last 3 years I've had it, it was only $50, which is getting ready to change. But think about this. 40 years of knowledge for $50. How many thousands of dollars in equipment, in travel, in tags,
Oh yeah.
are you going to spend in 5 years of trying to get that 5 years of knowledge? If you are not taking advantage of every one of these tools that are minuscule in the cost, compared to what you're going to spend over your elk hunting career in trying to have success, man, you are just not seeing it, man. And
yeah, it's a great way to put it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sorry, before you do it, Joel, you talked earlier about a hung bull. People talk about, well, I need a strategy and everybody talks about the hung bull. And most people don't realize they hung that bull up. You don't need a strategy for the hung bull. Yeah, okay, there's things you can do for that. But you are the person that hung that up because you went out there, you called an animal, you put out an elk call in an area where that critter could see far enough to know that they should see another elk. Red flag, they're not coming any closer. So your setup wasn't good. Your calling sequence wasn't good the way that you did it, right? So it's just little things like that that can totally change a hunt for you.
Yeah. And so I think in taking that, one of the things that I think a lot of people always go is like, all right, I've went out, I've done my 5 days. Like you said, I've been doing it for 5 years. I haven't killed anything yet. And sometimes that's not always, necessarily the goal other than the obvious, which is that everyone would like to fill tags, right? If there's plenty of years that I've come home empty handed and I kind of go, man, I still love September and it's still awesome. And I enjoy being able to go do it. Right. But, as you said, taking those experiences and obviously with you taking that in a much, much bigger plot of time that you have, what do you think is, maybe this is difficult to do, but like if you were to tell that same guy who's now like, all right, year 6 is my year, right? Like this is going to be my year to get it done. I've spent 5 years. I've got my 1 month of experience, as you put it. What would you say is your top 3 for saying, all right, if you do these 3 things, that maybe you haven't been doing? What do you think are those maybe couple of variables that have maybe the biggest impact on improving odds of success for people?
So knowledge is power, number one. You take Joel there, and you take y'all's knowledge set, whatever you're an expert on, people are going to pay money to be able to have that, because that's what makes a difference in you being able to do something much faster than anybody else. Knowledge is power. So first thing is to learn as much as you can about that animal's behaviors, how they move, what they like, what they dislike, and what they're going to do in different situations, different times of years, and in different conditions, in different places. So knowledge is key. And the other thing that I have found, because we coach guys, we actually do a coached hunt with people where we coach them for 2 months before they ever get boots on the ground. And everybody always works so hard on getting their equipment ready. They work so hard on getting their shooting down. They work so hard on getting their logistics for where they're going to go, making sure they have the right food, make sure they have this and that. The thing that is going to improve their success more than anything is the thing that they work least on, and that's calling and understanding the whys about calling. For me, the reason I can go out in the woods and I feel like every time I go in the woods I can kill an animal is because of my skill set, my calling skill set. I think that sets me above other people. And it doesn't mean that I can go out and win a Rocky Mountain Elk Federation calling competition. It means I know what to use at certain times and certain situations, and to be able to get an animal to do something that's going to give me an opportunity. So I always compare it like this. Calling is like this. You guys have wives? You like to shop in Walmart with your wife? Shake the head no, man. Heck no. Because
no.
For me, man, if I can go on Walmart and next thing I turn around, my wife is gone. And I go to look at her, it's like it takes a friggin' half hour for me able to find her, because I'm looking down one aisle and she could be on the other side of the other aisle going this way. And then I go in this one, she's on the other. She could be 10 feet away from me and I don't even know she's in the store. Y'all, that's most people elk hunting. Most people are out in the woods.
You got to rip the bugle in Walmart to let her know where you're at.
Bingo. So,
and make sure you get that on video, because I want to see it.
But the thing is instead of me trying to keep going and see or locate my wife by an encounter or being in the right place at the right time, if I do something to bring her to me, if I call her to come to me, that's way more efficient. Now, she might be mad as a wet hen if I do that in the middle of Walmart, but, the thing is it's way more efficient. And that's how most elk hunters are. They're out in the woods, hiking and hoping for an encounter. And they're waiting for destiny to be able to control their outcome. They're waiting for chance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use chance. I use choices. I make and control my own destiny. Does that mean I'm always going to be successful? No, man, it's elk hunting, right? And like you said, you can go out there and have a great experience. You can come home and still love September because, man, you are going to be dreaming about that for another 300 days of getting that opportunity again. It is so thrilling. Mm-hmm. But it's just like this, dude. When people say that it's not all about... Nobody goes on an elk hunt without a tag in their pocket. Nobody goes on an elk hunt not wanting to punch that tag, right?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, man, I sure hope I don't run into one out here.
Yeah. Can it be a thrill? Is it a thrill to be in the woods and to be and to enjoy the camaraderie? Absolutely it is. And no hunt is measured just by the end result, but it's that journey, y'all. It's that journey to get there, to accomplish that goal, is one of the reasons that we're out there every year. And no, look, I've killed a heck of a lot of animals in my career. But I don't know if you can tell, I'm just as passionate and just as pumped today as I was for that first cow elk 40 years ago now, so
Yeah.
it doesn't get old, man. That intimacy, that challenge, and look, I have a lot of knowledge, and yet I learn something new every time I go in the woods, man. Every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it. I think we've found, like, for us this year, for example, we went into a place that we've had success before,
Mm-hmm.
and we essentially get into that same place. It's 8 or 9 miles deep. It's a lot of work. And we get in there and we hunt some kind of border properties where there's guides and stuff like that. And we found out that the playing field got changed on us this year. And there was new ownership on some of that ground that got fenced. And all of a sudden we're like, oh boy, we walked into an entirely different situation here than before. And it was, now what do we do? And ultimately in hindsight now, we're kind of like, that might have become a barrier for us where, we're going to explore maybe some different territory because of the commitment to get to there. And it really kind of narrowed down our availability to either maneuver, work, call, things like that. We kind of had there was a bull that was inside of that fenced area that we just called the zoo bull. If you just like to hear elk bugle, he would have bugled at you all day, every day. And but he knew, obviously, as you've probably seen before, like when they find areas that they know they're safe or that they, can kind of hold up in, especially if they're fenced, like he had no reason to move. There were cows in there and we're like, all right, well, now what's our strategy going to be? Cause we could blow bugle tubes at him or cow call at him all day long and he has no reason to move. So we've got to think about how we're going to kind of change our strategy, and know that the circumstances change from before. And so, I think that those are things where, as guys, like, as you said, as you evolve, as you learn every year, we learned again this year and we kind of look at it and say, okay, what do we do next year to change the game? And sometimes it is, I know,
go somewhere else,
right? Like we talked to Dirk about, we talked to Dirk about, about that. And Dirk's like, some people like to go into places because they like how it looks. And he's like, but guess what? If there aren't elk there, then you're just out hiking. So go somewhere else, and the common theme of saying, like, don't leave elk to find elk, like those types of situations. And people are historically good at that. Like, oh, like, yeah, they're over there, but let's go see what's over here. It's like, maybe not. Like, maybe you just need to think about how you're approaching those elk if you haven't had success.
We just actually talked about that in our last podcast because somebody, listening to our show heard how we actually left an area where we had some encounters going the other place. But you don't leave elk to find elk except or in certain cases. And a lot of that has to do with, it's just like making sure that you increase your odds because there's a better stocked pond in someplace else, man. It's all about, sometimes it's a numbers game like that. But, when you asked me about the three things, so I said that knowledge is number one. Calling is huge. Calling is the game changer, and people don't practice it enough. They don't work at it enough, and you have to. If you truly want to be successful at doing that, you have to be knowledgeable. And then I would say that you actually mentioned one of those third ones is, I think the more you know an area, the better your chances are. But it can't just be one area. It has to be multiple areas. You have to learn to expand yourself, like you were talking about it. Because if you do go in one place and something has changed, if there's been a cougar that's gone in there, if they've all of a sudden there's been a fire in there, or it's been timbered, or something that's happened that's changed how things flow in there, you have to have other plans and multiple plans. And, we actually like to divide and conquer and explore other areas and then work from that after we've done it. And then really learn how those animals, once you learn an area and how animals move through those areas, you have a step up on anybody else. So that is important, but it's not like where you're just going to apply yourself to this 5,000 acres and that's it. That's all you're going to know. You have to know those other areas where animals work and get to know how they move and how they flow through those areas. So I think those 100%. Are huge three. I think they're huge. And, I don't tell people that a big one is shooting. I don't tell them that, because just like I don't tell my basketball players to shoot, practice their 3-point shot. Everybody goes out to the 3-point line and shoots. That's something they're going to do on their own. I don't have to tell them to do that. But the hard stuff in learning to call, getting the knowledge, that's not the sexy, right? And, just getting boots out there and learning those areas, going through the maps, doing your e-scouting, understanding the road systems, knowing what water is, knowing where your ridge points are, knowing where your pinch points are, knowing where your saddles are. Those types of things are going to be game changers for your success.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, the emergence, let me ask you this question, because this has become super popular in the past couple of years, and I say past couple of years loosely, right? But what's your analysis or opinion, I guess, on the emergence now of like so many people, and some of it is makes sense, right? You got the guy from Missouri who's not going to make it out to Colorado, to Mexico, Utah, wherever, more than, maybe their hunt. And you see so many people now really learning and getting good at like e-scouting, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is that a component of things that you guys utilize as a tool do you guys teach any of that stuff within your courses? Like, because for us, like, I think we're trying to become a little bit better at that. We still have the ability to get out and put boots on the ground, which I think it's hard to replace, but I think it's maybe utilizing that as a tool where we say, here's a couple areas that really, if we're studying and learning how to use that tool better, it can narrow that search when we actually go out and say, all right, let's go validate it. Do you guys utilize that as a tool as well?
Absolutely, man. Because there's things that you can identify just by doing that e-scouting, and that will give you, and it depends on the person. Like, I'm a very visual person. So I almost have like it's almost like a photographic memory. I can actually look at a map and look at an area and know what's what because of how it's shown on the topo, right? So topos come real easy for me on that. But I can tell you this, your boots on the ground, being able to relate what that does look like from that map to reality is a critical skill set that takes a little bit of learning and a little bit of experiencing, because you can look at something on your topo and go out there and get in and you're like, whoa, I just didn't see it like this. And here's the other thing that's a little bit different. And this is what I tell people is, when you get in an area, find a road that covers that area as much as possible, as quick as possible, and just drive. Because when you drive and look, there are things that you see on the sides of hills or in areas that you just don't see. You just don't see the elkiness of that area like it jumps out at you when you visually see it, right? Because you see the actual vegetation, you see the actual size of the trees, you can see what's choked inside a north area, how thick it is, or how sparse it is, or how everything drains from one place to the other, or what looks hidden that really, now looking at the map, because I see wow, man, that spot that I saw here, there's not an easy look of an entrance from the road that most guys are going to hike off into. So now you can actually relate some of that. So no, it's a huge component. I think, understanding mapping, understanding e-scouting, understanding road systems, I think it's a huge part. And you're right. That's, for people that can't get out there, that's step number one, so that they have all of that identified. Then once they get there, that hopefully they're a day minimum ahead of time, so that they can just run the area and get a feel and relate, imprint the reality of the visual to what they've been looking at on their mapping. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So tell people a little bit. I know you guys have multiple offerings, within like some of your courses, and you guys have your podcast and things like that. I think you guys are pretty easy to find, Elk Bros. I think if you Google that, you're going to come up with, your social media, your webpage, all of the different courses and things like that. What are, maybe some of the courses that you guys offer, so that folks have a better idea of that?
So we're like expanding all the time because God's taken us in really cool directions. But, if you want to find anything, you can go to elkbros.com, or you can do a search for Elk Bros. And Elk Bros is one word, ELKBROS. All right. That's how we have it. And we have our Elk Bros Blue Collar Elk Hunting podcast, and we get letters all the time from people that tell us, man, I've listened to all y'all shows. It's my first year. It's my second year. I got it done. Can't thank you enough. So you can absolutely learn a ton just from listening to our podcast. If you're somebody that wants to get more knowledge in that and really want to see how some of that is laid out, you can go into our academy, and all of it's on our website, and you can go there and purchase our base camp online training course. And that's we try to do a lot of interactive stuff with that. We try to do things in different ways on there, and share that knowledge set. But let me tell you what, I don't start with general knowledge. I do everything backwards, just the same way that I coach and same way that I taught. I go for the final seconds most in your control. That time of closing the deal is where, because there's so many people, they're going to get there either the right way or the wrong way, but they're going to get there. And it's like that dog chasing the car. Once you catch it, what are you going to do with it? So what I do is I start there, and I start at that final seconds so people understand how to close that deal and the best way to ethically and efficiently put that animal down. And then I work backwards from there. Now we go to response, then we go into setup, and then we're going to calling. We do all of it backwards, so that now as you step back and I talk about things that relate to stuff that most people haven't experienced, you already know what it looks like because you were just there. So now that knowledge set builds in a way that you connect, oh, that's why they do that, because you've just come from there. So it's a whole different way of experiencing it. It's just my style and the way I do it, and it is what I call success-based learning. I'm not trying to set you up now just to go make failures all the time and have to relearn. I want you to see it, what it looks like, and come back from there. So we have the base camp. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right, so we have the base camp. You can go to Elk Bros Adventures. We do coached hunts. That's a new thing that we're doing right now, and we're working on something really, really cool because we developed something called our Success Squad that we use for coaching people prior to getting boots on the ground. And it's not just me. We have multiple people that coach people in all aspects of gear, of shooting, of setup, and when I say setup, I mean the bow setup, and then teach setups as far as out in the woods and calling, all these different areas. And we're actually developing something pretty cool there that is going to be our next flagship. So that's something to come that people are going to be excited to hear about. But elkbros.com, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on YouTube, and you can go to our website.
Yeah, well, and as we met you guys last year at Western Hunt Fest, and got to kind of see more about what you guys do. Obviously, you guys were part of the the calling competition, and then watching and kind of following along as we went through September. The amount of success stories that people tagged you guys on and like, hey, thank you and whatever. I think that's the best gift that you guys get back is to have people that have. That have said like, man, all the stuff that you shared that I invested in you guys, it worked. Right. And I think that's the proof that's in the pudding. It's easy. And we see a lot of people that, are the armchair and keyboard quarterbacks and stuff like that say, go do this and go do this and da, 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 da. And then at the end of the day, it's like, but what's your result? And, as I followed you guys a lot this fall, obviously we're still in fall and into November now, get into more late season hunts. Like that was the thing that I noticed a lot of was like, hey, congrats, right? Like you guys are reciprocating back to the people that invested in, your courses and things. And like, it's kind of like when, your little kid like makes an accomplishment and you're like,
Absolutely.
Great job. And you pat him on the head, right. And that's
Absolutely.
where that coaching aspect, I think, comes in. And obviously Jason and I being in a very similar position where, that's our day to day too. And so when you can see people succeed based on you providing them with the tools and your background and knowledge, it's the ultimate gift that you get back is to know that you've helped people find success.
And those people, it's going to have a ripple effect. Their passion is going to pass on to somebody else and somebody else. And if we are teaching people to be responsible, ethical sportsmen out there, to honor the animal, honor other people in the woods, we're just making it better for all of us. And that's our goal. And if those people are having those experiences, then we've done our thing, man. And it makes us so proud. And it is an unbelievable feeling for somebody to say, thank you, because of y'all, I succeeded. That's incredible.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, last question, which is a simple one. This is a yes or no. Are you guys going to be back at Western Hunt Fest this year?
Yes.
Awesome. We're looking forward to that. And hopefully we're working on trying to make sure or finding a way that we're going to get closer to your hometown and a little bit down there. We're working on some of those things. And so I hope that not only will we see you once this year or this off season, but maybe more than once at those events. And we'll stay in touch. I know Jason and I, we've talked about, to me, I think that I look at the things that you offer and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to invest in that. And even on my side, I definitely am not too prideful to say, oh, I know everything there is to know about hunting, especially if I look at the number of animals that you've bagged compared to me. And even though I've been at it a while and not as long as you, I go, I bet there's a few things I could learn. So, I definitely appreciate what you guys are doing. It's awesome to get an opportunity to sit down and talk to you a little bit where, all the commotion that was going on around the event when we originally kind of, got introduced to you guys. It's tough to get enough of this conversation in. So we appreciate your time and we'll look forward to staying in touch and we'll, and
we're going to learn a thing or two, I think.
I could use it, that's for sure. So I
think we
you're not learning, you're losing, guys. If you're not learning, you're losing. So
that's it.
That's right. So
hey, thanks
awesome.
For having me on.
Make sure you guys go. Yeah, thanks. We'll make sure to leave all the connectivity to Joe and the whole crew at Elk Bros and make sure that you guys can go check them out. Be sure to follow them. They've got a lot of awesome information they do. Go check out their podcast as well. And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace, y'all.